Good day and welcome to Spotlight, the news and information show on your own Channel 977 and up on YouTube about people and events of interest to Lake Monticello. Today, the spotlight falls on the 4 candidates who are running for the 4 available slots on LMOA's Board of Directors. They are the current president, Larry Henson, the current vice president, Gary Selleck, and newcomers Bradley Brout and Michael Kelly. The vote itself will take place at the 51st annual meeting of the LMOA membership on the last Saturday in June, which will be June 24. Gentlemen, presuming at least one vote will be cast for each of you, perhaps by your spouse or your mother, congratulations on clearing the hurdles and on attaining the LMOA board. So let's get acquainted with each of you. As far as background experience, I think maybe it'd be good to start with the 2 new faces. Starting with you, Bradley Brown. How about you? Where'd you grow up and go to school and all that sort of thing?
Well, thank you. Please don't hold it against me, but I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York, and I grew up there. And, I went to school in the local public schools and high school, Sheepshead Bay High School. Anybody that's an alum from there, hello. And I went to Brooklyn College. I received my bachelor's in broadcast communications. And that's what eventually brought me down to this area. I worked at WVIR TV, was my first job in broadcasting. And I fell in love with the area. The Charlottesville and surrounding area was beautiful, and the people were amazingly friendly, which, being a New York kid, I was not something that was used to that, you know. So I said, at that point even, I said, you know, if I ever live long enough to retire, because the men in my family die young, if I ever live long enough to retire, I'd like to move back to the area. And, well, I've made it. So I came back 2.5 years ago. I bought a piece of property here, a home here, and I moved in 2 years ago. Unfortunately, I had made these plans also with my wife, and unfortunately she didn't make it. Her name is Beverly, but I decided to follow through with that plan. And I came here, and I'm still in love with the area. So I did change careers. I went, while I was working in broadcasting, I decided to become an attorney, and I did. And so I'm currently still licensed to practice law in New York State. And, but I don't practice law, but I keep my license going.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, very, very interesting. And welcome anybody from Brooklyn. Welcome down here.
Thank you.
I think we got a lot of people from New York.
Yeah, I'm learning that.
City down here, yeah. Mr. Kelly, how about you?
I was born in Seattle, Washington, and I moved around 5 different states. I was kind of a corporate brat. My dad wasn't in the Army or anything, but then we've been here at Lake Monticello for about 17 years now. And we moved here at that time because my wife, we both hated the commute. We were from Northern Virginia. So my wife found a job down here, and she said, guess what? I found a job. And then I found this lovely place called Lake Monticello, and the rest is history. We came here during that time.
There we are. Okay, that's terrific. Well, Larry Henson, why don't you review maybe new folks have certainly moved in or haven't been paying attention since we were elected
Ron.
3 years ago.
Born and raised in Little Rock, Arkansas. Go Hogs. Moved to Northern Virginia when I was 16 with my family. And so I say I'm from Northern Virginia. That's where I met my wife. We were high school sweethearts. We went off to school and ended up getting married and having 2 beautiful children, Matt and Melissa. Matt lives in Northern Virginia with two sons. Melissa lives less than a mile from us here with 2 sons and a daughter.
Cool.
So we're very fortunate with that. And I worked 30 years in the food industry for Kraft Foods, retired as Vice President of Operations. Started a second career and worked 15 years as a government contractor. And like Bradley, I still have my credentials active. I have all my clearances still active, but I don't use them anymore. But who knows? I might need to go back to work. So, but anyhow, we bought a second home here in 2012 and on Club Lane. And I said, maybe we could retire here someday. And I ended up having an office relocated down here. And I got my son-in-law a job down here. And he moved his family down here. And one day I came home from work and the wife goes, I'm going to the lake. And I said, we go to the lake every weekend, honey. And she goes, you don't understand. I'm not coming back. Ooh, Lord, what'd I do? So we followed the grandchildren and we decided this is where we're going to retire. And we've since sold the Club Lane and bought a nice little home here. So
Oh, that's great.
we love it here. So
That's great.
Great
Well,
place.
we have 3 quadrants of the country represented by your origins, and now Vice President Selly,
That's good.
out of the country.
Yeah, a little bit of international flair, right? So I'm Gary Selleck. I was born in London, England, grew up in Plymouth, England. I did my undergraduate at the University of Kent, and while I was there, I did a study abroad at the University of South Carolina. That'll come up later. And I spent a year in America and had a great time, thoroughly enjoyed myself. I went back to England and I met my wife, who is American, and who was on a study abroad at the University of Kent. So I spent a year in America and didn't find an American girl I liked. I had to wait till I was in England to find one. So we got married while I was in England. I was a high school teacher at the time. And in 2013, she wanted to come home. And so I started my PhD in history at the University of South Carolina, where I did my study abroad. So in 2018, a job opened up at Monticello, working on Thomas Jefferson's papers. And so I came up here, interviewed, I got the job, and we moved to the lake totally blind. We'd never visited before, but we needed a place to rent super quick because the job was on a quick turnaround, and we got a place on Jefferson, near the marina, actually, not too far from the main gate. And we decided immediately that we loved the location and we wanted to stay here. And so we bought our first ever family home right here at the lake, and we've been here ever since. I've got my little girl, Darcy, who's 8 years old. She was born in Columbia, South Carolina, and now we've got a new girl, Cecilia. She was born just this last August.
Oh, well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, that's very cool. That's great. Well, all right. So let's get into some of the other get acquainted kind of questions in effect. Bradley Brown, what in your background and experience do you think will qualify you to be an effective member of the board? Your pitch, so to speak.
Okay, my pitch. Well, I was on a board of directors of a co-op that I lived in Brooklyn, New York. I lived in a 4-building, like an apartment-size building cooperative, and nowhere near as many people there as here. But it gave me a fulfillment. I was about 12 years. I was elected 4 times in one of those terms. It was 3-year terms, and one of them I was the president of the board of directors. So I understand a lot of the challenges being on a board of directors for a housing area entails. So in that respect, I'm prepared in some ways. Also being an attorney, which I don't profess to tell anybody that, I would review documents and, give advice, because I'm not allowed to really do that. But it gives me a better understanding of how legal documents are written. So I might be able to make suggestions or give opinions like that, but not as an attorney, just someone who kind of understands how contracts are written. That aside, I always enjoy giving more to a community, especially a place that I live, than I'm getting from it. So I want to be involved in the development and also be able to give of my time, which now that I'm retired is something that I could do. That's one of the reasons that I left and I didn't run again for the board of directors when I lived in my co-op, because I wound up getting promoted, if you want to call it that, into management at the New York City Law Department, which is where I was practiced as an attorney. I represented the city of New York as a corporate entity and its employees. When the city or its employees were sued, I was one of the many attorneys that would appear in court and represent them. So in that respect, like I said, I enjoy giving to my community.
Well, all right. That is very interesting indeed. Mr. Kelly?
Yes, sir.
How about you? Your elevator pitch, if you will.
Well, basically, and let me back up for just a minute. I've got 4 children. Two are in two are in Indianapolis, 2 girls, and I've got a son that's in Cincinnati, and then my youngest son is in Germany. He's a dual citizen, if you will. He's German and U.S. So he actually is a bartender at a pub in Kaiserslautern, Germany, on the when he's not working at a construction site that he's in. The other thing is I have a reverse arc of Larry, basically. Instead of 15 years with government, I was 30 years in the Army, or 29 years in the Army, and retired a full colonel. And then I also had 15 years in corporate America, so I just kind of had the reverse of him. And part of the things I did while I was in the Army, I was a commander in Desert Shield and Desert Storm. And I also, when I was a young captain, responsible for the financial management of a place near Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. And I was responsible for the financial management of a place called Lake of the Ozarks, officer club, NCO club, bowling alley, golf course, food and beverage operations, Class 6, which is the liquor warehouse. So it has a lot of the same resonance of the things that we do here. So at the time, I probably didn't appreciate that was my job, but it probably informs me a little bit about what's going on here. And my background is I have a degree in marketing, Bachelor of Science, and a Master's in Management. And what I think I can bring to the table is, especially because I was the chair of the audit committee here, is a financial management and stewardship thing. And stewardship was kind of my main objective. If you looked at what was in the paper and those other areas. But I think stewardship is something that the board brings. They've done very well during the time that I've been here, and especially this last cycle. And one reason I was running for the board is I saw that Jay was rolling off, and I just thought I could contribute my financial management skills and everything to that. I do already look at the financials for both our amenities contractor, IGP, as well as what LMOA puts out.
Well, obviously important, and certainly your military experience got you into all sorts of things as well there. Mr. Brown, what would you like the board to accomplish during your term in office?
Well, what I would like them to do is continue to do the good work that they have. I've lived here only a few years, and I hear some people complain, and I hear some people praise. One of the things that I would like the board to do is to just listen to the complaints and kind of take them to heart and try to do the best they can. I know that saying is you can't please all the people all the time, okay? And that's not possible, because it just isn't. And this is the association is a corporate entity. So you have to look at the long-term goals and always keep that in mind. And sometimes the short-term desires don't meet the long-term goals. So the communication that I see now through, the channel here and the weekly updates that we get by email are fantastic. And I think that if people reading that could really, they get the information that they really should have. And that's one thing that I'm kind of looking forward to, is continuing to give information to the community so they could understand that the decisions that the board is faced with, and contribute in that respect.
Okay. You'll have to pardon me if I double back. I want to go back to Board President Larry Henson first on what was the prime motivator in seeking, in having you seek re-election. You have just so much fun the first time around?
I am. I'm totally honest with you, I am. I served on the board of directors in Fairfax, so nearly not as big as this. But I learned a lot working for Kraft Foods. It's a very large corporation. I was in charge of $11 million in inventory to support $450 million in annual sales. You don't get that big without remembering the customer. And my goal 3 years ago when we ran was, this is about the customer. This is not our board. This is about Lake Monticello and the people that live here. And I didn't think at that time, out of nobody's fault, I just didn't feel like the focus was on the residents, that we needed to listen to the residents and at the same time be businesslike and remember it is a business and make important decisions. But I feel we don't make a decision until we hear from the residents, and I will carry that forward to the next term. I think it's important. Communication is a big deal, and I think we've come a long way with communication. So, am I done servicing the customer? No, I'd like to keep going.
Okay, all right. Vice President Selleck, how about you, sir?
Yeah, I was on the audit committee. I served with Mike very, very briefly before I got elected to the board. And I was secretary there. And that was my first taste of the volunteerism here at this lake. The volunteers, both on the board and in the committees, are really what make this place function as well as it does. It's been an absolute joy to work with the committees, with the various volunteers, and with my fellow board members for the past 3 years. So just like Larry, I love the job. I love the way it allows me to communicate with members of this community, and it's something I want to continue to do. I will tell you, in 3 years, I've been secretary, vice president, and for a short period this year, acting president of this association. And it's a learning curve. 12,500 people live here. It's a lot of people, 4,000 homes. It's a lot of different opinions, and it's constantly evolving. And the amazing thing is I've seen growth not only in myself, but also in my fellow board members as that time period has gone on. We've changed our relationships, both corporate, with Indigo, for example, and also with the residents through our communications. And I think we have gone from strength to strength in that department. I think we are stronger now than we were when I ran 3 years ago. The demographics are changing. That was one of the reasons I ran 3 years ago, was I felt that younger people and families were not adequately represented at the board level. And whilst Johnny Williamson and myself are still here, there is still that gap. And I think that representation is still very important considering how the demographics continue to shift. I'm very proud of the 3 years, what we've done. My proudest achievement was the creation of the Young Residents and Families Committee. I ran on getting that representation to young people and allowing families, just like mine, who live here, to have more community-focused activities here at the lake. And I believe that's happened, and I would like to see that continue as we carry on going forward. In terms of communication, I think like I said, we have come on leaps and bounds. It's still amazing to me how shocked people are by some of the decisions the board makes. Things come out of the blue. And me and Larry, back 3 years ago on transparency. Well, as Mike's been alluding to with the financials, everything's there. It's not a lack of transparency, which is keeping our residents from being able to see committee minutes, the financials, everything. Everything's on the website. I do think there are ways in which we can communicate some of those things better to a more diverse audience so that we can stop these issues and situations where things come out of the blue and shock residents. I think we, as a board, need to be able to do that. And me as vice president, it's kind of my remit to make sure that's the case. And so I look forward to working on that in the coming board.
Okay. Mr. Kelly, what would you like the board to accomplish during your term?
Well, I think at least in my limited experience here, I guess my focus on the audit committee and working with the finance committee and the treasurer is we're all looking at ways that the amenities contractor, IGP, India Golf Partners, would be able to increase revenue and to reduce their cost so that they can achieve a break-even point. And so if we could do that during the first year, we would be way ahead. I mean, I don't know if everybody in the area knows that our contract requires us to pay all of the losses that they have by contract. And so it's a six-figure number, comes out of basically what we've all given as our dues and some other incomes. And it's just something that I think we're all dedicated to, and we have been for the last few years. How can we do this better? And I know right now they've introduced a new general manager to the group, and he's working hard with Tom, our general manager, to try to come up with those ideas and things that would mean that we have a great physical plant here, but we got to get the warm bodies in, figure out ways that we can be responsive to a diverse community. I think one of the things I really learned a lot from, even though I thought, boy, this is a long assignment, was getting the names of everybody. I think I ended up with 335 or something like that. But almost everybody had an idea, had commentary on what you should do. Or,
Okay.
where's my money go? Just like Gary said. And there are ways that we can communicate that so we can say, here's what you need to know type of thing. And then at the same time, we work hammer and tong as hard as we can to make sure that we do the right thing for all of our consumers or our constituents, as I would like to call them.
All right. Okay, thank you. Larry Henson, you've probably referred to some of this already in your remarks, but as far as things you would like the board to accomplish in the next 3 years?
Well, one thing is definitely the financial responsibility that we have. We've got to work with IGP, Troon, it's a big deal. Mike's right. Gary talks about communication, that's a big deal. I would like to see the community not be so negative on Facebook. So, and what I mean by that is there a lot of information that we share, and it is taken out of text, or there's comments made on false information. And to Gary's point, and we're working with a social media policy to make sure that we have a social media platform. We have LMOA face page to start using those avenues of gathering information, because that's where you get the real information, not off Facebook. Now, do I use it? I do use it. That's how I keep in touch with my family. But when it comes to news or information, I don't use it. So I would like to see us could improve that communication as we keep moving forward. The other thing that I would like to see is we have a new committee, our Community Development Committee, made up of 6 very bright individuals. And this committee came about from growth outside our gates. Village Gardens, Village Oaks across the street. 3 of us got involved, 3 residents got involved, and myself, and went to bat for Lake Monticello to stop the Village Gardens project, because that project would have had a direct effect on our lake. Again, community getting involved. There were only 4 of us that went to these planning commission meetings. We need more people to get involved on what's going on outside the lake. One of the questions you have there, and I've got to comment on it because I find it very interesting. You're right, we're selling out the property. We're running out of properties, we're running out of lots. The lake is growing, but it's growing outside the lake. What resources are we going to need inside the lake to support our amenities and keep the values of our home up? That's going to take a lot of resources. So that's going to be my focus for the next 3 years, is to work with the Community Development Committee, stay abreast what's happening. We're developing a relationship that I don't think Lake Monticello has really had with the county. We meet with Eric Dahl and Douglas Miles, and Jennifer Smeck, and Board of Supervisors. We go to the planning committees. We have to pay attention to what's going on outside our gate so we can protect what's inside the gate. So that's going to be one of my big focuses this year moving forward.
Yeah, a lot of years past. As a matter of fact, we hardly ever, as a lake, as a body, got involved before such issues as zoning, planning commission, et cetera, which did affect Lake Monticello. And so I think that is probably, obviously, we're the biggest component of the county, but we have to protect our interests and look out for them accordingly. That's
Absolutely. And if you look at, not to go on, but look at Colonial Circle, what it did to the land. That land's not coming back. We got some homes. The Wildlife Committee should have been in an uproar over that. There's so much stripping, and I understand we live in a rural area. People grow trees, and they sell them, but people aren't replanting the trees. They're waiting for that next big offer for maybe a new storage unit to go in.
Yeah.
But anyhow, we have to pay attention to what's going on, because it's definitely going to have an impact on us.
Yeah, I remember when I was running. Before I ran, I was a member of the FLDP, Fluvanna Leadership Development Program. I know Larry, you were in there as well. Don't know about you folks, but it was a fantastic opportunity to get to know the county rather than just the lake. I was well versed with the lake by that time. I'd been living here for 2 years. I knew very little outside of what was on the other side of Palmyra. You know, going down to Columbia, going out to Fork Union. Those are totally alien concepts to me. And I remember I was sitting there, and it was a roughly split class of 30 of us. Half of us lived at the lake, half of the others lived outside of the lake. And it was an us versus them mentality. It is. If you live at the lake, you're a Laker. If you live outside, you're a Fluvanna County resident. And it has been refreshing since COVID to see the ways in which us as a community have been reaching out to local bodies, whether that be Eric Dahl, whether that be the high school that Marika's reaching out to, whether that be what David is doing, Chief Wells, with the Chief of Police, Eric Hess. It's fantastic to have this joint focus on the county now. It's not just the lake and them. It is now us as a whole. And that's increasingly important. Like Larry says, I mean, with the growth going on around this area, we have to make sure that we have a voice at that table, and a voice at that table which works in balance with the rest of the county. It isn't just about the lake and what's going on outside the lake. It's about what's going on up at Zion's Crossroads and the water project up there. It's about us being able to reach out to Aqua Virginia and provide a strong force against bad infrastructure and rate increases. And we work better when we have a larger voice. And that larger voice, if it includes the county, can only benefit us. So that's something else that I'd like to see keep going. We've already started that process, keep growing it. I think amalgamating us and the county in a more substantial way can only benefit the lake.
And I would say one other thing, because I haven't heard it expressed here, but I'm sure that in your board meetings and things, you might have talked about it. But as part of that realization, some of the things we blocked outside, which is great, because we're trying to preserve our way of life in here just as much. But like you said, they've already got the Colonial Circle, and they've got other things just even across the street, and they're building a lot of different things. That is an opportunity for us as well to become and we have to do this carefully, become a destination using our amenities for those on the outside. We're going to have to figure out how we can have a class of individual group paying something, so we monetize that group of people, and that will, once we start responsibly being a destination, and we have these interchanges and things, we hopefully can then do what you want, is to influence their behavior as well, because we'll start being a community not only of the lake residents, but a community of the ones who are in the closest relationship to us, and maybe even beyond within Fluvanna County. Now, I'm not expecting people from Charlottesville to maybe want to come out here, but you don't know. We got a class golf course, we got a super pool now, all those things, and we're talking about, what would it take to get them to be break even, and that is somehow figure out how we can bring in other people, because the lake has a fixed base of people. And sometimes it's the pricing that keeps them out, sometimes it's other things. But we need to, if we can walk that fine line, and not ruin our way of life and increase it and broaden our relationships, I think we would be better off economically as well. I don't know. I might be wrong, Larry. I don't know if
It's something, like you said it, you mentioned the board, it's something that the board has talked with. We've talked to Tom about it. Do we look? It's either we're going to have to look and come up with a way to do with what you're talking about, or we're going to have to figure out a way to increase the size of the gates. If the residents don't want them in, you don't want to do that, then we've got to figure out how are we going to pay to protect the inside, to not allow that to happen. Because there's 450 homes at Colonial Circle. How many people is that? 2,000? Those 2,000 people would love to come to Lake Monticello, just like Village Oaks. So we either find a way to help us subsidize what's going on inside this gate with those people, or we have to figure out how are we going to protect our amenities, and that was going to come with a cost.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, I mean, you're dead right. The lake is different from Colonial Circle, and it is different from Village Gardens and all of those different sub-developments that are proposed or being built because of the facilities we have. And it is critically important. And I'm with you, Mike. I especially with things like the golf course, there is an absolute need to go to places like Charlottesville, to go to Louisa, to go to Goochland, get golfers to come in and play, because it increases revenue. However, it is also incredibly important that we don't ruin those amenities for our residents. The residents always have to come first, because they're the dues payers who are here year round.
Right.
This is their lake. This is their golf course. This is their swimming pool. So as long as we always prioritize the residents that live here, I think it is very important that we do look at increasing revenues in F&B, in golf, figuring out how to do that in a way that's sustainable, gets us money, but at the same time doesn't negatively affect our residents. I think it's a good idea.
Well, and I would tell you another thing, when I was getting signatures, a lot of them say, I pay my dues and everything, but I still have to buy a pool pass, or I still have to spend, a lot of money just to eat at Ashlon. Is there anything that you could have that would be residents only, day or night or something like that, to where we would get a cut rate? Now, that would be worth subsidizing, I would think, in our mind.
It's definitely worth the discussion.
Yeah.
Well, I think you gentlemen are, which I think is terrific, we're cross-pollinating. Yes, Mr. Brown. Yeah.
This gentleman here, the vice president, mentioned this is our lake, this is our golf course, all these amenities. But foremost, this is our home.
Yeah.
This is where we've decided to live. People that are younger than myself and your age, they're here to raise their children. And this, like I said, this is our home, and that really is the first priority, in my opinion. The amenities are great, and that's what brought a lot of people here. But again, like I said, this is our home, and we always have to keep that in sight. That's what I wanted to interject. I apologize.
No, that's fine.
Yeah,
No,
I think that's what
fine.
Larry said, too.
Yeah. No, you gentlemen have touched on a number of these issues in your discussion, which is just wonderful, I think. Question arises in all of this, is our present governance structure sufficient to deal with this? And you've touched on some of them. Gary Selleck mentioned the increasing younger and diverse demographic. We have the need to maintain 60 miles of roads. Obviously, growing financial pressures. We get no revenue from either property taxes, which go to the county, or from any of the nearby businesses where we all spend our money. And so do we have a governing structure that is adequate to handle all this? Mr. President?
I would say today we do.
Yeah.
Today. Maybe in 3 years we still will. But I look beyond that and I just touch base back to, we're going to have help from the county. Because it's going to get so big around us that we as lake residents are not going to be able to foot the bill to entertain everybody in this county. We're not going to be able to foot the bill, like I said, to put 5,000 square miles of fence around this place if we decide to not go that way to keep them out. So whatever we do is going to cost us a ton of money, and it's going to take more people. I will tell you one of the things that I think is a bright spot that we have to mention when you talk about governance, not just the board. Our staff is amazing. We have turned our operation around at Ashlon. We have a wonderful general manager, and every single position that we have has a qualified person. And as we grow, we're going to need more of those qualified people.
Absolutely.
So I think today, maybe 3 years, we're okay. But beyond that, I mean, I call it Lake Monticello Beltway. If we don't pay attention to what's going on. So.
Well, and Tom's success is a function of, as the growth goes, we have to be, as a board, I think we have to be responsible. I know there's assets that he probably could use. And, they're trying to modernize their systems even, their accounting system and things like that. And so we can't say, well, we just got to save costs and all that stuff, and then his shop goes to hell in a handbasket. That's impossible. So, I mean, really, Lake Monticello rests on his shoulders. That's why they're paid, hopefully, big bucks, as we would say in corporate America, right? But he's taken the responsibility, and he takes that to heart, and we should all do what we can do to make him succeed.
Yeah, this is a big business.
Yeah.
LMOA is a huge business. It has a million moving parts.
Got the numbers in here.
It never sleeps. Something's going on 24/7.
Yep.
It's a wonderful community. It's our home. I don't think people realize what they have in LMOA. This is a resort. It's unbelievable what we have and what we can offer. And it doesn't matter what your income level, whether you have a $200,000 home or you have a $500,000 home or you have now, we're breaking the millions.
Yeah.
But we all have the same thing in common. It's our home, and we got a lake, and we got all these activities. What a place to raise a family. I wish we'd have been here. I'd raised my family and retired, all, and I'd have never moved. This place is unbelievable. It's our job to protect that, to protect those values and to keep it going. And yeah, I love this place. I get excited about it.
We can tell.
And, yeah, I mean, to come off of that, I mean, I talked earlier about evolution on the board and evolution in the LMOA, and that's going to have to continue going forward. Will the board of directors and the staff exist in 20 years the way it does today? Who knows? Probably not. It will have to change with time. Like Larry says, there are outside pressures that are pushing in. There's inside pressures that are pushing out. You know, the roads are going to have to be repaved. The fact is, inflation is really hurting us right now. And so it's all about being able to change. But we've shown as a community and as an organization a willingness to evolve and to adapt and to try new things. We tried to run the restaurants. Didn't work. So we brought in an outside company to do it for us. And for a decent amount of time until COVID and inflation, they were doing a pretty decent job. And so it's all about finding your weaknesses and finding out ways to skirt around them and to make them your strengths. And if that means divesting power to an organization, for example, IGP in this case, that can do the job better than we can ourselves, we have to have that realization and be able to do it. And so as long as we continue to progress in that manner, I see bright times ahead.
I would be wrong if I didn't touch on this one thing that Gary's talking about. We almost lost our police force.
Yep.
We got down to 2 officers. We couldn't hire. Everybody needed police officers. We're Lake Monticello. We don't pay that much. So we were having a hard time competing. So a staff, an educated staff, and this board came up with the hybrid. It's a bridge. We signed a contract with Allied Security to man the gate and to give us some security rovers because we needed help. We didn't have the police officers, and Sheriff Hess was up to his. He's got the same problem. He can't hire officers. So one of the best things I think we did was we bridged the gap by putting into security, but we hired an excellent police chief.
Yep.
And he just hired his 4th officer. Now we're up to budget. So what does that mean? We bridged the gap. We've got a good police force now. Now we can start taking back some of those allied bridge gap because now we've got a good, solid police force. It was never the intention of us to have our police force go away. It happened. It just happened. And we got caught. So we had to do something quick. And that's what I'm talking, you got good thinking staff that said, hey, and the board working together. This staff and this board, we work so well together. And that's what it needs to be. And,
Mr. Brown,
In addition to the staff, which of course are paid, and the board, which is not paid, the fact that this location and the board has all these different committees, the various committees, and the ability for new committees to be born, so to speak, as people feel the needs arises, is to me an amazing way for the governance of this community. Because I think without the committees, the board wouldn't be able to even function.
Yeah.
So, I want to thank all the different groups that add to the beauty of this organization and of the community.
We wouldn't be sitting here today if it weren't for these.
Exactly, for this media committee.
This,
I mean-
this broadcast committee is phenomenal.
I mean, like I was saying, over 12,000 people live here at this lake, and they come from various socio-economic, educational experiences and backgrounds. And there's a committee for any one of them to be able to apply their outside skills. We have phenomenal people on broadcast, on the finance committee, on audit, people with real life experience doing this job in the real world who can bring it to the LMOA and dedicate their time for free. And that's an amazing thing. You're dead right, Bradley. I mean, without them, we would struggle as a board to get anything done. We stand on the shoulders of the committees.
Absolutely.
And they are absolute heroes, and they don't get praised nearly enough. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to do that. Well, because you're dead right. They are absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
Larry, you said something earlier about we don't get anything from government. Is that true? We don't get any support from the government?
You're talking about financial?
From
or-
Fluvanna?
Very little,
Right.
nothing that I can think of.
We've got 12,000 people
Yep.
here,
Right.
5,000 homes about, somewhere in there. What would Fluvanna be like if we didn't exist?
Oh, there's no question, and that's why.
But
It's all, as Gary said it earlier, and I saw it before I got on the board. The county's here, the lake's here, we want nothing to do with each other. And the lake was just as bad to the county.
yeah,
It was like oil and water, and yes, you're right. The county should look and say, there's 12,000 taxpayers over there. We need to pay attention to them.
And
you know what?
voters.
And voters.
Right.
And you know what? I've met every single board of supervisors. I've been probably every meeting, the planning commission. Those people want to hear from us. They want to be a team because they realize just what you said. There's 5,000 homes.
Yeah.
We better start paying attention or they'll never get anything done because every time they want to do something, Lake Monticello's at the planning commission meeting saying no. So they're tired of hearing us say no. So
and what's that development group that you stood up?
a community development committee, and it's headed by Tom Diggs.
Right.
And,
Maybe we could also turn that into a lobbying group of sorts to get our slice of the pie.
Well, they are, and kind of doing that. They're the ones that brought to the table the most recent aqua rate hike. They got involved with that, and we wrote several letters to the state commission, and it dropped the rate from $3 and some change down to $1.
Yeah.
So it does work.
Yeah.
So you have, so I say, here we go again, outside the lake, because Aqua just doesn't service in here. They're all over the state of Virginia, so
But we're 2/3 of
that is right.
Yeah.
their footprint,
That is
for
correct.
God's sakes.
Yep.
But don't see how it would happen, but you're borrowing from sports where there are all kinds of revenue sharing agreements. Because
That's right.
as we point out, the lake maintains 60 miles of roads. We have our own security, our own police force. Many years ago, there was a proposal basically for the lake to divest itself of the homeowner association designation and kind of fold in with the community. So the sheriff would have to take care of the security throughout the lake. The county would have to take care of plowing the roads, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, it never went anywhere. But to to illustrate how there, once again, all this money flows to the county, and we get zilch. So I don't know if any progress could somehow, I don't know, the county would claim, oops, that's up goes the tax rate, and there you go. And so I don't know if that would fly any way
They're
at
getting
all.
a free ride on our property values, for example, our property taxes. We just got our bills in the mail.
Well, a few specific questions, if you wouldn't mind. President Henson, you say your primary objective is to secure our financial independence in part by increasing and diversifying revenue streams. You have any particular ideas how we might do that?
Well, I don't think it's a secret that it's out there. We're looking at something to do with the campground. As you all know, it is on the ballot
Okay.
to give the board permission to sell it. But that doesn't mean that we would sell it. We couldn't, we would have to figure out what we wanted to do with it. That would determine who you sell it to. Do you want apartment buildings? Would you like a hotel? Would you like a Wawa gas station? It all depends on what we do, but the first thing is the residents have to support it. They may or they may not, but you don't know how many times I've been questioned on, what are you going to do with the campground? It's been sitting over there for 30 years doing nothing. We could make a fortune off of it. Okay, well, tell us how we could make a fortune off of it.
Right, yeah.
So, Community Development Committee, we gave them 19 ideas that were sent in by residents on what to do with the campground. They worked on it for months and months and months and all kinds of analyzation. One of the ways was to sell it, just to sell it. It's not, some people are for it, some are against, so we're going to have 2 town halls. That's one revenue generating. Whatever we do, as Gary and the rest of the board wanted, whatever we do has got to be revenue generating forever, not just, so just flat selling it, you'll make some interest on the money if you invest it.
Yeah.
That's not the kind of revenue we need to keep our dues at 3% a year. So that's part of it. The other part of it is Mike hit on it, and this is a big one, is IGP and Troon. We've got to stay on top of that. These people have helped us. Gary's right. Before they came in, we lost over $800,000 in food and beverage and golf. And in a year and a half, 2 short years, we turned that around to about $300,000. Then COVID hit and inflation hit, and it all went to, I'll say it, hell in a handbasket. It affected all of us. So now we've got to drop back 10 yards, punt, and get back with a partnership with IGP because they do know how to do it. And we owe it to the residents for the value of their homes. That's what we're supposed to do. And those are the 2 big things for me right now.
No, okay. Vice President Selleck, you mentioned improved accessibility of the board materials as a way of increasing the public trust. Again, have any specific proposals in that regard?
Yeah, so this is one of those situations where there's 2 facets to this. The first one, and this is the one I'm going to diminish straight away, minimize and throw away, is you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So we can put everything out there as much as we can. There will be always some people that just don't read up on their community, things like that. But let's minimize that, because I think the vast majority of people here at this lake do care about how the lake is run, how their homes are being run, and how the LMOA and how the board is doing that. I think that there are certain things, such as the website, that could be improved to make it a lot easier for residents to be able to get at basic information, be able to find minutes, be able to find the financials in a much quicker and more easy to do way. That would require not a radical redesign of the website, but a redesign of certain aspects of the website to bring certain things to the fore. I know that some people are very sad that the newspaper went away. The newspaper was costing us a whole bunch of money, but there has got to be other ways other than emails that we can get information out to folks, because some people just aren't computer literate, don't read their emails. Some people just delete the emails before they even go there, even though they get sent to them. So we've got to find a way of being able to diversify the way we get that information out, whether that be more to do with broadcast committee, whether that be more trying to explain our current communication situation. For example, you could send out a pamphlet which would explain where the information is to be found, which sounds like a really simple thing to do, because a lot of people will slap me down and say, oh, well, you can find it if you look hard enough. Well, yeah, if you look hard enough, you can find pretty much anything. You can find a man on the moon if you look hard enough. But if we can explain in an easy to digest way to the vast majority of residents here where to find information, and then work on things like the website to make that information just that much easier to find, I think we'd have a lot better accessibility when it comes to just getting the basic information, which would stop people then going to Facebook and being shocked and dismayed at certain board decisions that have been discussed for months because they haven't heard about them. And it's behooving on us as a board to make that information as easy as possible for residents to get. And so I'll work with Marika, who has done a fantastic job. This is no knock on her. The website was being redesigned before she ever came in. And she's done a fantastic job, like you say, with the emails and the e-blasts to get information out there to people that are able and willing to get it in that avenue. But we have to look at different ways to be able to get that information out, to try and get the most people as possible to have that information as quick as possible. And that's something that I'll be working with her on in the next year, I'm sure.
All right, wonderful. Mr. Brout, you cited speeding and potential traffic lights as a couple of problems that you see and objectives for you. Would you consider asking VDOT for a traffic light at the intersection of Route 53 and the Monash Gate?
Well, not just there, but Riverside, I believe it's called Riverside as well, that gate. Since this is not a retirement community, and we have lots of people that work surrounding areas. Charlottesville is the largest one, but they have to get out of the community, and usually within a certain time frame. We call it rush hour, at least where I'm from. And so what I would suggest is to have VDOT do a survey, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a traffic light, but that's what it probably would be, a traffic control device that might give priority to certain times, depending upon the traffic flow and where it's coming from at that moment, to people leaving our community to be able to get to work in a timely fashion, that they don't have to allow an extra 15 minutes just to get out of the gates. Because, that gate could open, but it doesn't mean that you can get onto the main road if there's a lot of traffic flow. So yes, they should have some traffic lights there that are sensitive as far as, or get information from our gates. They put, the county or us could put pressure sensitive devices in the roadway, which would be able to tell if there's a car trying to exit or how many cars trying to exit the various gates and to feed onto the main road. So the main road should have a red light allowing the backup of 5-10 cars to exit smoothly. And you don't have to tear out. You look, you see a car coming, and you're now trying to calculate in your head, well, that car is doing supposedly 45 miles an hour. There's maybe, 1,000 feet. Can I make that turn quick enough and get up to a safe enough speed where I don't get into an accident? People shouldn't really have to be doing that on a daily basis to get out of here to get to work.
All right, thank you. Mr. Kelly, you mentioned an objective of growing the IGP amenity revenues and reducing expenses as a means of reducing our subsidies on them. Again, do you have any specific thoughts on how this might happen?
Well, for one, we have to look at the physical plant of the two kitchens we have, actually, and they've already done that to some degree. Ashlawn Restaurant has a larger kitchen than does the pub. And so sometimes the pub can't get as much throughput as it would like, even though it's crucial to the golf course and what they do, but it has a lot of other things. People want an informal dining thing. So we got to figure out how we can maybe leverage the larger kitchen, because there's no room to build anymore at the pub. And so that's one area they can look at. The other is of course what the new general manager is doing, and through the GM's influence and Larry's influence, they are looking at ways where they can have performance metrics. We really don't have performance even though they know what the heck they're doing. They don't have performance metrics that they can tell their staff, we're not hitting our performance metrics. In other words, how much staff do we have, for how many people do we have? We've got this thing coming up on a Sunday night or whatever. How many people do we really need? I've heard a lot of people saying it, and it's always easy to have 20/20 hindsight, but you go over to something like the GIA, it used to be Sal's, and they got like 3 people in there, and the place is just packed. And maybe at our place, if you're not watching it, the place is not packed, and we got 6. At least that's what the perception is, and things like that. And then when you get the financials in and the cost of goods is way out of industry standard, there's some disconnect there, because IGP knows what the heck they're doing. Yet we're still, it's not reflected in any of their performance metrics. So we need to just influence those a little more, I think. And they are having the GM's having a monthly meeting now with not only the district manager, but sometimes the regional manager as well. So they want our business. They want our business. They're putting their leadership in there. We've had some personnel changes. So that's what I think is the way to do it. I mean, that's the way we do it in corporate America, I would believe. And Larry and I have both been in those type of rooms, and you just got to keep pounding the metrics and saying, okay, what can we do to help you win?
Yeah, okay, well, thank you very much. Well, gentlemen, normally at this time, we ask for any closing statement or any comment you may have on anything. Basically, you've been very wide-ranging with your comments so far, but sort of a free play. So just I'll toss it out there. Larry Henson?
I'll go back to why I do this. It's about the people. I love this community. It has to be one of the most unique places I've ever been to. You've got school-age children. You've got guys Ron and my age. It's just, and everything in between. And this is an activities, a lot of people call it amenity. Yeah, we got a lake. This is an activities-based community. There is so much going on, and so much for folks of all ages to enjoy, and we need to protect that. How do we protect it? We have to pay attention to what's going on around us, inside and outside. And as long as we do that, we'll be fine. But I'm looking forward to another 3 years. You folks out there in voting land, please vote for me.
So I
There's
got
4 slots for 4 guys.
That's right.
Anyhow, still vote for me. And
Well, that's it. That is the one, just to remind folks, that is the only basic competition that apparently, and I don't know, people may vote for 4 candidates unless you've made some enemy out of someone along the line. I don't know who's going to get fewer votes, but the candidate who gets the least votes will be serving a 2-year term, and the other 3 a 3-year term is
1 year term.
a 1-year term?
one.
Yeah.
Oh, it's only a 1-year term for the least. Pardon me, my misunderstanding. Thank you for the correction. So, Vice President Selleck, any closing comment?
For the last 3 years, like I've said, I've worked with this board in numerous positions, and it has been, like I say, a growing experience for me, but also it's been a wonderful thing to be able to engage with this community, which I love so very much, and work with so many dedicated individuals. And that's from the committees, that's from the rest of the board members, the members of staff who are doing, like Larry says, a phenomenal job, but also engaging with the residents. I want them to remember that you're not putting us out if you drop us an email and ask us a question. It's important that we listen to you. We are your voices, and we will listen. Now, you might not always get what you want. With 12,500 people, there's 12,500 different opinions. But I'm very proud of the 3 years I've served on this board, very proud of the votes that I've taken and the direction in which this community has been going. I got elected with Larry in the middle of COVID, one of the worst epidemiological disasters in the last 100 years. And then on top of that, we are now fighting inflation. And yet through that, look at the community around you and ask, can you really tell, outside of your own paychecks, outside of your life, outside of this lake, considering what we're going through and the strains and stresses we've been under, has your quality of life at this lake substantially decreased? And I would argue no. And in many cases, it has got even better. And so I'm looking forward to continuing to serve. And please vote for me. And please pay attention to everyone else up here as well. At the end of the day, we're volunteers. Despite what you might hear online, we do not line our pockets. We work for absolutely nothing, but we do it for the love of this community. And there's an awful lot of love in this community. There's a lot of love in this room right now. Everyone here is a volunteer. And so I appreciate the support that I've got for the previous 3 years and the support I'm going to have going forward. So thank you.
Thank you. Bradley Brown?
Yes, sir. Okay, as has been explained, as far as the vote's concerned, since there were only 4 positions and there were only 4 people that are running, so yes, it is a given that each one of us will be on the board, and the main difference is that the person with the least votes will serve a 1-year term. So whether I wind up with a 3-year term, which is what I'm hoping for, or a 1-year term, the big thing is that I appreciate the chance to serve the community. And the only difference as far as the 1-year term versus a 3 is that if you're now elected to the 1-year term, you wind up running again in a year. So hopefully, and getting all of those signatures was actually a feat. So hopefully I'll have a 3-year term. Thank you, and I do appreciate that you vote for me.
All right.
We'll just throw out that Bradley though.
Sorry?
Fun though, wasn't it? Getting the signatures?
Yes, I got a lot of ideas and I took notes on most of them, and most of them were positive.
Yeah.
And it was fun because the way I went about it was I didn't want to bother people at home. So I didn't go knocking on doors, especially during the evening when people would be having dinner or some, event that they got to see their kids. So I stayed basically around the Food Lion and in our own pub. And that's how I got my signatures,
Yeah.
to try to not bother people.
All right. Good strategy.
Thank you.
Mr. Kelly?
As a board member, I'm committed to bring solutions that improve the quality of life of our homeowners, full stop. I think that's our job one, and that's what I've heard today. And then I'd like to use my talents and bring those to the board and use them wherever I'm needed. And I'll be committed to that for the term that I'm elected for. And like everyone else, I really could use your vote. Just get out and vote, though, as well, is the bigger item. We all want your vote.
Right.
But you need to get out and vote and tell your friends and neighbors to vote. I think you all told me there were 2,700 on the last one, so
Well, that was 3 years ago.
3 years ago. So we should be able to do 5, no sweat, right? Mm-hmm. So let's get out there and do it.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And that is a reminder that under the new system, proxy materials will be out and voting will begin and run from May 22 to June 16. You folks may vote online or on paper, but please do vote because a quorum is necessary for the election to be valid. Well, our thanks to you all, and we best wishes to the new and returning members of the LMOA Board of Directors. Our thanks, Larry Henson and Bradley Brout, Gary Selleck, and Michael Kelly. So the LMOA broadcast will be covering the annual meeting, which will be on, again, the last Saturday in June. We will be posting that it'll be on Channel 977 and will be posted up on YouTube. So thank you again to our candidates and incoming board members. Until next time, on behalf of the broadcast group, I'm Ron Kraus. Thank you and good day.